The Emerald Tablet, Chapter 17. They Plan to Break the Rules. Benjamin ran back into the bedroom. "Hey, get up! Get up! I know where the first key is," he said. Andy rolled over and rubbed his eyes. "What time is it?" he asked. "It's 2 in the morning, but that doesn't matter. I know where the first key is," Benjamin repeated. "Well, where?" Andy asked. Both he and Gary were now sitting up. "It's in Bangkok," Benjamin said. "How could you know that?" Gary asked. "Did you dream it?" Andy said, yawning. "The geodyne showed me," Benjamin said. He pulled it out of his pocket and held it out in his hand. "I watched the meteorite land in Tibet and then watched the stone, or at least part of it, being taken to Bangkok." "That little globe showed that to you?" Andy asked. "This little globe is amazing. It shows you everything. The key traveled by boat down the River Ping. It's in Thailand." Benjamin said, "We have to go get it." "I hate to tell you this, but Bangkok's a pretty big place," Gary said. "How do we go about knowing where to look?" "Maybe the geodyne can show us more detail. Maybe it can show us where to look in Bangkok," Benjamin said. "Yeah, but even if we do find out where it is," Gary said, "we can't leave Lemuria. We can't even leave the capital city. That's against the rules." "Well, there must be some way to get there," Benjamin said. "How? Just sneak off to Thailand?" Andy said. "Maybe we could go up to the nearest teleporter and say, 'Send me to Thailand,' or something like that." He let out a deep breath and sank back into his pillow. "You think the teleporters won't let us go?" Benjamin said. "Of course they won't let us," Andy said. "I mean, they're school teleporters, and everything around here seems to know our DNA code. Heck, I don't even know my DNA code. I'd be willing to bet they have travel out of the city totally blocked for Year 1 Denarians." "You may be right," Benjamin said, sinking into a chair. "And I don't think any of us can teleport ourselves there," Andy continued. "I mean, I know you're showing promise, Benjamin, but you have a long way to go." "Not that long," Benjamin replied. "Face it, it's going to be impossible to get there while we're still at summer school," Andy said. "We may just have to wait until we get back home and have our parents take us or something." "There may be another way," Gary said suddenly. Both Benjamin and Andy turned. What in the world would Gary be willing to break the rules for? "Here's what I'm thinking," Gary said. "What's going on in Bangkok next weekend?" "Chinese New Year?" Andy guessed. Gary frowned at him. "Don't you ever listen to anything? You'll never be an agent if you don't start being more observant." "Okay, so what's going on?" Benjamin asked. "The Bangkok Chess Open," Gary stated. "And?" Andy said. "And who do we know that's going to Bangkok, secretly, to play in the Bangkok Chess Open?" Gary asked. And then Benjamin realized it. Gary would break the school rules for chess. "Morpheus Midas," Benjamin answered. "And the Panther," Gary said. "They're going to the tournament, and they don't want anyone to know. So how do you think they're going to get there? The odds are that at least one of them has to rely on a teleporter machine. And so, if we found out which teleporter they were using and used the same one, we could get to Bangkok," Benjamin said. "Right," Gary said, smiling. Benjamin smiled back. "I think we need to come up with a plan." They spent the first half of Sunday devising a plan for the journey to Bangkok. Benjamin and Heidi studied the geodyne, zooming in on the arrival of the key to Bangkok. It was taken into a temple under construction at the time. By cross-referencing the location of the temple and the year of the arrival on their sheaves, Benjamin and Heidi were able to determine the first key of Shambhala was inside the temple of the Emerald Buddha. The Emerald Buddha had been discovered accidentally in the 15th century. Because it was so valuable, it had been plastered over to hide its beauty from invaders. However, fate had different plans for the Emerald Buddha. Lightning struck the statue, exposing the shiny green beneath. Nobody was certain when it had been created, and everyone assumed it was made of green jade or jasper. But now Benjamin wondered if the actual stone was in fact moldavite, the same as the Emerald Tablet and the keys they were after. After being discovered, the Buddha was lost to marauders, won back in war, moved from one capital city to another, but always worshipped. It was finally taken to Bangkok when the city was first forming, and a temple adjoining the Grand Palace of Siam was constructed for its worship, the Temple of the Emerald Buddha. "So why don't we just ask Morpheus again if we can go with him to the tournament?" Iva said. "He seems like a pretty nice guy. I bet he'd take us." "Even if Morpheus said yes, the Panther would never let us go," Benjamin said. "You heard what he said." "He said he'd kick us out of school," Heidi replied. "I think he was just bluffing," Gary said. "I could see it in his mind," Heidi replied. "It was no bluff." "So how are we going to sneak onto a public teleporter and walk around the temple looking for the key?" Heidi asked. "Well, I doubt they'll use a public teleporter, and I don't think all of us should go," Benjamin said. "Here's my idea." During the week, Andy and Iva would follow the Panther around, gathering what information they could about him. What teleporter did he use? Could he teleport without the assistance of a machine? If both he and Morpheus could, they'd need a new plan, fast. At the same time, Gary and Heidi would go back to Morpheus Midas's store for more information. Under the false pretext that Heidi was looking for another telemagnifier, Gary would get more details on the events of the coming weekend. When was the tournament? What time were he and the Panther planning on leaving? When would they be coming back? Where was the tournament being held? And could Morpheus himself teleport? Benjamin would spend his free time mapping out the Grand Palace grounds and the layout of the Temple of the Emerald Buddha. Buddha. He needed to know the security in place around the temple to look for possible secret rooms inside the temple and to calculate how long it would take him to get in and out. They decided that only 3 of them could actually travel to Bangkok. Gary would go to watch over Morpheus and the Panther at the tournament, and Benjamin and Iva would go into the temple to look for the first key of Shambhala. Benjamin picked Iva over Heidi in case they needed her telegnostic abilities to find the key. Heidi pouted but couldn't argue with the logic. Andy and Heidi would stand guard back in Lemuria. They would remain near whatever teleporter was used and try to use telepathy to contact the others if something went wrong. At the end of the week, Benjamin felt they had all the information they needed. The Panther could teleport, but Morpheus Midas could not. Morpheus had a private teleporter in the back of his store. By asking him about the tournament, Heidi easily picked the teleporter access code from his mind for Bangkok. The tournament started at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, and he and the Panther would leave around 8 to get there. The teleporter in Bangkok was hidden about a 15-minute walk from the Bangkok Chess Open. Benjamin figured the longest walk to the palace grounds would be around 23 minutes. To make sure communication wouldn't be an issue, they'd been practicing their telepathy all week. The telepathy practice areas were equipped with telepathy chambers, which came in extremely useful. The telepathy chambers were paired pods, which 2 Telligans could use to practice communicating over distances. Gary easily communicated with Iva and Benjamin up to a 5-mile separation, which more than accounted for the 1 mile between the arena where the Chess Open was held and the Temple of the Emerald Buddha. He wouldn't have any problems letting them know when Morpheus and the Panther started to leave the tournament. Communicating with Heidi and Andy back in Lemuria would have posed a problem for anyone other than Heidi Dillon, even with the bonding of the Alliance. The telepathy chambers showed that Heidi could send her thoughts into specific minds for distances upwards of 6,000 miles. Using her Moonstone Ring telemagnifier, the separation increased to over 10,000 miles. And not only was she able to place thoughts into minds that far away, she could receive thoughts sent from that distance, at least from Benjamin. And so they were ready for the trip to Bangkok tomorrow. All they had to do now was sleep.